Hello Lorenzonites and fans, welcome back to the EllBristow HardKore Challenge, episode 3. Today we're going to the moon, and as in the previous episode it's still a fairly simple rocket. We've seen its ilk before, and there's nothing very special about it. So let me recall, it's probably Columbus for capturing the new world. It's not a very ambitious rocket, it's not a very complicated rocket, it's not a very interesting rocket, but it has been made with reliability in mind. See, the launch bit here is a cluster of 5 engines. This is 5 rather than 4, one center with 3 around it, so that if one of the engines were to fail during ascent, I only need to disable one other engine to make the ship be balanced again. It's small consolation because it probably won't make it as there are no fuel lines, but you know, reliability. Many small tanks instead of more larger ones. If one gets punctured, we lose less fuel. We have a small lunar injection stage here. Not strictly necessary, but this makes it so that these 5 engines take care of the orbital insertion. This one fires for the lunar insertion, and the one on the lander that's hidden away here takes care of the lunar maneuverings, the moonar maneuverings, and the way back. That way all the engines, at least I'm assuming that the lifetime counts from ignition, aren't required to grow old and function then. Now, one of the slightly annoying things about this challenge is that it's actually a time trial. It's the shortest time to completion of the goals being flags on the moon, the North Pole of Kerbin, Minmus, Ike and Duna, and that means that we're not going to be time warping for aesthetically more pleasing launch windows. We have Jebediah Kerman in the command seat, and if you've watched episode 1, you'll remember that Jebediah Kerman actually died. So in the save game, crew respawning is apparently still a thing. I'm going to edit that out of the persistence file, even though persistence editing was against the rules. I think Kerbal respawning is as well. For this mission, now let's not roll with it. Let's well, that's another rule breaking. Let's revert the flight to the vehicle assembly building. But this rule breaking is just so we can properly kill off Jebediah in post-production. So Jebediah is actually dead. We're gonna run with build this mission and launch the mission then. Of course, this all hinges on me remembering to actually edit the persistence file in that way, but for all intents and purposes, Jebediah is actually dead. So here we go. The one challenge with this rocket is that struts don't exist in our R&D scope yet. So this rocket is slightly more wobbly than the rocket engineers might have liked. That makes it a little bit tricky to control, and while I'm fairly confident that it will get to orbit, the final inclination is not a matter of determinism. There's a bit of luck and randomness involved in that. You'll see here in the life support window I have actually brought along some extra life support canisters, and they up the life support capacity of this ship to 8.5 days. Electricity is only sufficient for about 8 hours, but we have solar panels on the lander, so as soon as these fairings separate we actually have power generating ability. These 8 hours thus only need to outlast occlusions, eclipses and just normal orbits around the planet or the moon, and that should be perfectly possible. We have 5 engines here. The 4 outer ones are bigger. They will burn out first. There's no asparagus or cross-feeding going on, so the center one will burn longer. It's got a smaller engine and one more fuel tank, but it will be almost depleted as well as soon as these outer tanks go. Actually, apart from this relatively aberrant inclination, this launch is going really well. There's hardly any wobbling. I think we're getting fairly optimal pitch over and speed ratios. We're now at 1200 meters per second and at 33 kilometers of altitude. Getting into orbit around stock Kerbin really is a breeze, as long as your rockets don't disintegrate due to aerodynamic failure, that is. There is science aboard this vessel. I have 2 goo canisters. I'm saving them for lunar operations, and we can take, of course, crew reports with good old Bill. For now though, let's focus on getting into orbit. We can always milk the neighborhood of Kerbin for science if we suddenly need a few more points. So, separation of those 4 things and the outer fairings. That means we can behold. Hey, why aren't these engines going anywhere? Oh, they didn't separate out. Right, let's get rid of them after all. There they go. And now we lost attitude. We don't have RCS here, but we can behold the launcher. We have 2 goo canisters, we have some batteries, we have solar panels, and we have landing legs. Fairly basic. The life support canisters are on top here under the parachute, and they should provide for us. We are now ghosting up to our apoapsis, which is, I think, fairly high. Let's have a peek at the map view. Holy moly, yeah, that is high. That's about 340 kilometers. That's a slightly higher orbit than is strictly necessary to launch from, but then again, it is dangerous to steer through the lower atmosphere, especially with this wobbly rocket. So I opted not to, which leads to this fairly suboptimal and inclined transfer orbit. Fortunately, the moon is close and its sphere of influence is relatively humongous, so it shouldn't be that big of a problem. Right, we have found our prograde marker for the burn that will have to occur in 7 minutes. Let's just lock the SAS on there, and then we shall see about doing some science here in Kerbin orbit. See, it's really quite a long space worm. I called it the Columbus, but I might as well have called it the space worm. Right, SAS on. And let's ask, I always forget which sciences we have done. Crew report, of course, we did have that already. So let's try an EVA one. EVA report, yeah, we had that over the water also. So we can time warp now. We need to take care of the node time and of the moment when we're no longer over water. We have a severely inclined orbit, so we might actually pass over some biomes that we would not otherwise. Are these islands, do they count? Well, let's try it. We don't have anything better to do after all. In space high over Kerbin. Wow, already? 280 kilometers? Gee. Well, I suppose I'm spoiled by the real solar system where high space is like 60,000 kilometers. But yeah, we can ask for a crew report here. Transmit that home, no comms devices. Store data. EVA, keep that. Crew report. Yeah, we're just going to store all these reports. I think... No, the transmission do we have line of sight? Because in the last episode there was also trouble with transmitting stuff home. Activate target. Maybe we have to do some more stuff with the antenna before we can actually fire off datas. Let's try it. We activated the antenna, pointed it at mission control, and let's now fire the stuff home. Yeah, that's it. So, fire that home. Cool, that's nice. At least we figured that out. That's something that remote tech does for unmanned missions at least, where I suppose you need line of sight to mission control, which we still have, but that means you also need to deploy and actively point your antennae, which we didn't do before. Right, oh, whoopsie, we're falling out of space. Forgot to light the engine for the circularization burn. Once this burn is done, we will do more science still. At least we'll try to grab some... We'll make a maneuver node to encounter the moon, and then we'll try to grab some more EVA reports. Oh no, we can't, because we're in space high over Kerbin, at which point the individual biomes cease to matter. So our mission time is now 11 minutes. That's still well within the 1 hour period where an engine is expected to function. Expected to function with a minimal amount of failures, like 1 in 160,000 hours, if I recall. Anyway, this engine is done. Are we in a good orbit? Yes, we are in a good orbit. We can set up moon encounters from here. Let's ditch the stage and leave our very first piece of genuine space debris. There we go. This is the remainder of our craft. Target the moon, and you can see here we have 24 degrees of inclination, which is a little much. First we'll try burning on that inclined node. And hey, look at that. That will just immediately give us an encounter. Pretty good one as well. Remember, we are on a clock, both from the life support as from, of course, the challenge. Although I'm not actually focusing on winning the challenge too much because, well, there's just a lot more efficient ways to do this all in one launch and stuff. But in the spirit of the challenge, I'm focusing a little bit on reliability and prudence and over-engineering. And that means that we have too much delta V, too much capacity for the mission at hand in our ship. And thus we have room for leaky tanks and suboptimal burns due to sudden failures and all that good stuff. Still, we should make our trajectories be somewhat efficient. So we have a translunar injection burn coming up in 12 minutes. And let's see, does our periapsis approach the planet again? That it does. We might be able to snag some more EVA reports close to the planet. Oh look, this antenna is actually draining significant amounts of power. We have to keep track of that, because otherwise we might die. In space near Kerbin, wonderful, and that means we can go outside and sample the biome at the ground there. Highlands, which we already had, unfortunately. So, our node will happen in 3 minutes. Our engine is tiny, so I'm going to burn at like 1 minute from the node. And our ship is now small enough that I dare burn at time-warped realities. I don't know how to properly say that. Right, let's try one more biome just before we do those engines. EVA report. Highlands again. All of Kerbin is now Highlands, and let's light the engine. 700 meters per second to go, 3 minutes to do it. Let's accelerate time. That will now be just under 45 seconds. In my estimation, this stage will take care of this injection burn, the lunar insertion, and most of the landing, which leaves most of this vehicle to return home. Which is a nice thought, because as I said before, that leaves a decent margin for mucking about failures and all that good stuff. See, now we're not we're still generating some electricity. You might have to turn off the antenna actually once we get into the dark side of Kerbin. The current dark side, that is the shadow of the planet. And with that rambling about electricity and life support, we are almost there. 30 meters per second to go. Let's just look at the map and see how our encounter will shape up. Did I just screw that up? Yes, I did. I need to turn around, which I'm doing. Look at the nav ball here. Turn around and slow down a little. Because our inclination is so messed up, the actual encounter point does matter. Because if we miss it, then we miss it by a lot, because we will only be like in the same plane for, well, a part of the orbit. So, a lunar periapsis of 1900 kilometers. Not a very small periapsis, but we can work with it. We can work with it. That's fine. So off we go. We can sample another biome. Ooh, look at that, the sunset from space. Water, we already have that. Boring, boring, boring. Alright, let's deactivate. How much does it drain? Activate it. Almost a charge per second. That's actually significant. Yeah, that's significant. It's almost exactly our solar panel generating capacity. Right. Enough blathering. We have lots of things to do, so let's time warp to the moon. Keeping a small eye on this bit. If any of these things suddenly start to degrade, we might have a failure on our hands. But so far everything looks good. Keeping an eye on the resources. Oxygen is going down, that's expected. Our Kerbal is alive after all. Fuel is staying rock steady, that's also good. No tanks are leaking. And we may have to inspect our engine, because that's now several hours old. And everything I said about all the engines only needing to work once was a complete fabrication, because obviously this engine needs to fire both in Kerbin orbit as in moon orbit. One thing that is important is that neither of these burns are very time critical, so we have time to go outside and fix it if it's broken. So here we go, around the moon, and a fairly polar orbit as well, so that means we can snag lots and lots of EVA science, which is really nice. And if I recall correctly, the lunar surface provides EVA biome reports from both high space and low space, but I'm not sure about that. Right, so let's save that, fire up the antennae again, because we need to be transmitting this stuff home. If we have line of sight to it. It appears we may. I'm not sure about that. Right, overwrite the crew report, transmit it. It says if you have no line of sight, it just says no comms devices, which is a bit misleading, because it's perfectly operational. 50 megameters, that's also far enough. Oh well, we'll just save the data then, that's also fine. And let's get an EVA report. Yeah, just the high one. And let's get him outside again, because we need to take the data and store the experiments again. That's a trick through which you can store more crew reports in the pod. So we have our maneuver node. It's 400 meters per second, not a huge deal. And we will need to do so in 46 minutes. That means we will time warp that amount and then make an EVA around the ship to check the engine, fix it if necessary, and then do our insertion burn. Yes. In the meantime we can deactivate our antennae again, because that's clearly fairly useless. We may need to launch some roboticized relay satellites if we want to do these transmissions. Granted, they're not really necessary because we're returning anyway, but I do find it nice to, well, to be able to transmit data that is 100% transmissible. Just in case some catastrophe happens, we then still get some science, which, you know, catastrophes are known to happen every now and then. Oh shit, I missed the launch window. Oh well, we'll just try the engine, fire it up. Hooray, it works! And it's a comparatively old engine, it's 17 hours old. Which in spacecraft engine, it's its second firing, is very old. Fortunately it's been built to last. Alright, establishing orbit around the moon, something this Kerbal has never done before, and indeed he is the first of his kind to ever do so. Let's apply some judicious time warping again, because oh man, are we the impatient sort. And I'm not going to completely spam the whole surface with EVAs, because that's super boring, but for the record, you can get enough science from the moon to like almost max out the science tree in 1 or 2 launches. And ooh, we're not gonna do that because that's boring. It's a good thing I looked at the map view, because we have just established a fairly aggressive landing trajectory that will just crash us immediately, and we don't want that. We want to fly closely over the surface and be amazing. So 28 kilometers is a much better bet. Right, and that is 3 more hours. Still an engine check over. I deem it not completely necessary because we are in a stable orbit. If the engine doesn't work, we can just wait it out and fix it and work around that problem without any stress. Right, we're at 250 kilometers altitude now. Let's see if that's already... That's still in space high over the moon. Doesn't matter. We have time. We can go lower. Where is that moon? Oh, there it is. It's completely black. Because we lost the sun. Oh well, it's something that happens apparently. I have no idea how these solar magics work. I am a green man that was put in a capsule in a dare. So high over the moon. I forget these altitudes. What counts as low over the moon these days? Is it 50? Yeah, it's 50 maybe. It looks really beat up with craters. Nice. Let's snag an EVA report. Midlands, got it. And let's now, just because we're outside, check out our engines. And taking care not to lose the ship in the pitch blackness. So let's inspect that. Good as new, great. Really well built engine by our Kerbal engineers. And where is our entry hatch? Right. That's the Midlands there. And now it's time for an actual engine burn. Let's do that. Pointing at retrograde. Slamming on the brakes. There we go. This is a rocky landing zone. We don't want to land here. And we're not going to. Our electricity has been replenished. Life support is not leaking yet. Fuel is slowly being ejected out the back as per expectations. So everything is hunky-dory nominal. Oh wow, this moon is so small. Small and cute. It's such a small burn from there to here. So that's a nice tight orbit established. Oh, that's what she said. I don't know how that's dirty, but I'm sure you can figure it out. And well, let's snag a few EVA reporters. Highlands, got that, because these sciences are oh so juicy. We can just sort of land here actually. Midlands, we had that already. Are we gonna land here? Yeah, why the hell not? Or let's land in one of the big craters. No, we're not passing over it. No. I want an EVA report. Midlands. I'm sick of the Midlands. I'm gonna land. Although that means that we're landing in the Midlands. But we're also landing very near the equator, which is nice for our escape burn. Yeah, we're gonna land here. And then on our way out, we'll pass over the crater and get some more science. Yes, I know it's not the most optimal way. Actually, we're wasting lots and lots of potential science. But we're here for the flag, damn it. Although the challenge also stipulated maxing out the tech tree. But personally, I just... getting all those EVA reports is... I think my least favorite bit of the whole game. So yeah, there's that. Oh, I can get a goo canister report, which I should get that, and one from the surface, obviously. So again, not the most efficient landing profile, but the speeds here are so low that we can just get away with it. Of course, these three tanks will drop away. Then we have the similar, actually an identical engine here with a tank and a half of fuel here, which will provide us with the rest of the requisite delta V. We are almost rid of our horizontal speed, just 200 more meters per second to go, and then it's just a question of falling, which we can do in a time accelerated fashion, and then gently landing, which should be fine. This is a weird scratch here. Should have the Kerbal geologists pore over that, maybe. Alright, I don't need to completely get rid of all the speed. Let's try one more EVA report. Midlands, screw those Midlands, really. Okay, some time acceleration. That's 10 times. And we're falling pretty much straight down. Yeah, let's apply some more engine power. This is getting frighteningly fast. And our deceleration is decent, but it's not superb. So we need to have a little bit of margin, even though this was still a very big amount of safety. I'm still happy with the safety precautions we have. This engine is used, it could break, but then again, if it does break, we can just ditch the stage and use the actual lander engine, which is brand spanking new. So that should work out fine. And we are falling towards the ground at 10 times accelerated speed. I have a feeling this plateau is pretty high up because the ground seems very close. And the altimeter still reads 12 kilometers. So we're not going to take any chances, especially because obviously we don't get any quick saves. In my other save games I don't tend to use quick saves either, but was specifically stipulated in the rules for this one. So well, let's not take any undue risks. So far everything is holding together perfectly fine. Oh, I should check the internal cockpit maybe for the radar altimeter. That still says more than 3 kilometers. Right, now this stage is almost dry and we can use that as a nice makeshift altimeter, where we drop it and then basically just observe when it hits the ground. We are coming down over a nice flat area. So yeah, let's do that. Let's drop this stage when it's empty. We can deploy our legs. Have a look inside. We're at 2.5 or just 1. Yeah, we're at just 1 kilometer now, and we're also going really slow, so that's all good. So we have to keep an eye on that gray bit, and there's the shadow. That's really close. We are now at 800 meters of altitude. That means at 3.8 kilometers on the altimeter, that's where the ground is. And that's always good to know. If you have an extra spare part on your rocket that you don't need when you're landing, you can use it as a accurate altimeter. So there's that. You can use that in your rockets and your endeavors. And of course, looking at the shadow there is a good way of gauging your descent. Lots of my previous videos have been very complicated long-range missions with fancy technologies and mods. Sometimes there's nothing that goes above a plain old-fashioned moon mission, which is functionally indistinguishable from the ones from the old .13 days. Of course, we had less fancy parts, no science, none of that. Oh, I'm using the wrong throttle button. Oh, don't fall over, don't fall over. Yes, thank you. I'm not feeling very confident going outside, but we are on the surface of the moon. What happened there in the final moments was, I dare not admit it, I mistook the throttle up key for the throttle down key, and I was actually throttling down all the time when I wanted to give a little bit more thrust. So we came down rather harder than expected. This still counts as a space EVA, which we don't already had. Let's take all the data, store the experiments. This is the crew report now stored, so that we can get more crew reports later. And now we are going to get surface samples and plant flags. Because yes, we are on the surface of the moon. Is it not amazing? Take a surface sample. 120 science. Plant the flag here. What's a good name for a lunar flag? Let's just go full cheese. One small cheese. And an EVA report from the surface, of course, to take home. Now, we are worried about time. Remember, we are not going to stay the night, although we have the life support to do so. We are also going to collect the datas from the goo canisters. And I hope we can do so. We might have to do so whilst flying, which, if you're an avid viewer of the channel, is something I've once spent like 15 minutes on to grab the data this way. Which means I'm now really good at it. It's also where you find out if your computer still has sticky keys enabled. Because if it does, it will crash out the game. But all that aside, we have the data. Oh, no, 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 no. Come on. It's also nice if you're used to making your lander like this, that your Kerbal has to fly back into it and then for a change go to Eve, and then you're stranded forever. Alright, so we're pretty much equatorial. We're in a good spot to fly home. We have to take off and head to 270 degrees, counterclockwise basically, and then shoot off there and crash back at Kerbin. Yeah, sounds good. We're not forgetting anything. I don't think so. Do we need to check over the engine? No, it was still good when we landed 5 minutes ago. So there we go. Retracting the legs and pitching over really early so that we may snag some EVA pictures of nice formations. Because of course if we get too much altitude going too soon, then we're in space high over the moon and we don't get the points for all the biomes that we will still pass over. So there's that. Yeah, we are going in the right direction. Always useful to check that on the map view if you've just made a in-head trajectory calculation. We need about 700 to 800 meters per second relative to the surface, if I recall correctly, to get home. So we're going to do that full burn and then hop outside and take greater pictures from space. Yeah. We should be expecting a Earthrise. No, not quite yet. We're still full on the other side, yeah. And it will take a while before we get an Earthrise. All consumables are still looking good. They are not all consumed yet, and they're more importantly not leaking. Total mission duration is now almost 1 full Earth day. And I think that opens up the possibility at least to get some random failures, which of course we don't want, but it will be interesting to deal with. So in that way we are looking forward to seeing them. At least I am. I think it will be fun to deal with, even though one could potentially ruin a mission, which of course would be a pity. Okay, here we go. I think 30-ish kilometers is a good aiming point for a nice and safe re-entry. Boom, that means that this engine can now be scrapped. Look, we have 120 units of fuel still remaining. That was our safety margin because the mission otherwise pretty much went according to spec. Yeah, some more EVA reports, wonderful. And I don't think we have enough fuel to go for a second lunar landing. That would be arrogant. So let's fast forward over the ridge of the crater and see if we can get one more EVA magic. Highland craters, yes. And now we're gaining altitude quickly, and we are now high over the moon, so no more free EVA reports with lots and lots of science. Okay, 1000 times time acceleration engaged, taking care of the consumables here. They're still progressing as expected. No leaks, no malfunctions, none of that. And we are getting close to Kerbin now. And I'm going to do the same trick as I did on the previous mission. Once we get close to the atmosphere, I'm going to use the remaining rocket fuel to slow down a little. And that means we do want to do an EVA checkout of the vehicle, especially of the parachute. I don't know if they can brake. I didn't actually check that, but well, as long as we're working with these reliability mods, I don't think it hurts to check your parachute before landing. And of course, let's check the engine. Come on, I want to inspect it. Engine still seems good. Nice. So far, our engineers are delivering stellar work. Is our periapsis still good? 31 kilometers, that's as good as can be expected. For a change, this ship won't be recoverable. We are just going to recover the pod, the science, and the life support. Of course, I didn't take care to land on top of the Kerbal Space Center either. I don't know how to do that from the moon. Well, I know how to approximately do it, but it would be far too much work for relatively little gains. Okay, we're in the atmosphere. Unfortunately, landing on the night side, but doing some additional slowing through rocket power. I don't know if this actually helps, but you know, it soothes the conscience. At least it feels like we're doing something rather than just plummeting into the air willy-nilly. And we have decelerated by a good 200 meters per second already, so it should at least help a little bit. Let's bring up the FARS display here. We're now at Mach 8.5. Relatively sedate orbiting speed for small Kerbin, but the atmosphere is still immeasurably thin, so we shouldn't run into any problems yet. I think we should be fine, although I must say I'm not too familiar with the dynamics of Ferrum Aerospace and stock Kerbin. I do know that real solar system Kerbin, so Earth, and Ferrum Aerospace, they are monsters. They will eat your ships alive. So maybe I'm overthinking things here, but maybe I'm just being cautious. Right, let's get away from this thing before everything starts to explode. Is everything starting to explode? Yeah, sort of. Although, the engine is actually being a pretty good heat shield. Who'd have thought that? Wow. This is good. It's actually cooling down. Okay, so it's not that beastly. Here we go, we're now decelerating at 4 Gs. That's, well, most of that is due to the aerodynamic. Oh no, actually 1.5 Gs was due to the engine itself. I think I'm afraid to ditch it now because we could tumble and then still burn up somehow. But now we're going slow enough that I might separate it and deploy the parachute, which should drag it away. Now we are decelerating under parachute, and this one is not. Although I would have expected in that condition to have this one veritably shoot away, and it's just slowly drifting. So this was very draggy. Maybe the engine? I don't know what happened. But it does appear that even though in the dead of night, we did do a safe re-entry. So hurrah for that. And are we landing over water, or... yeah, we have absolutely no idea. So let's just wait it out a bit. That also means I don't dare use any time acceleration, because even though just the pod and the parachute seems safe in time accelerated chute deployments, there are now some parts between the chute and the pod, and I really don't want to crash on the final leg of this, well, all in all, rather successful moon mission. We had no failures, we had lots of life support, we got a decent amount of science, and we did a flag. Oh look, there is an island. Yeah, we are going to come down just offshore of this coast. That means the good people of whoever lived there can recover our pod in a fishing boat. So, no expensive naval operations. So, here we go, a few more meters. I just time accelerated anyway because the chute had deployed, and that is very safe. Alright, recovering the moon mission, great success. We can celebrate one more mission goal completed. And lots of science points. Lots of funds for the missions. Yes, we got lots of contracts completed. And lots of reputation. Amazing. So, contract completed. Completed. Wonderful. So, first things first, the next mission. Oh, shit! A flag on the moon. No shit. Well, we did that. Okay, we can accept this one. We'll just send some science data from space around Kerbin. Yes, accept the contract. We might establish some. We might establish a space station. That will. Yes, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try and build this a space station that will last for a year. A year for one guy, and he can then get these science things. It will be nice. Maybe. I have to think about it. Rescue Dirt Tree Kerbin. We can try that. We can try that. We'll have another. It's a nice. We can rescue him with the space station. Yes. That's a nice thing for the next mission. Science data from space. Explore Duna, Ike and Minmus. Yeah, we're gonna accept all. No, we're gonna accept Minmus because we'll do that next after the space station. Maybe. The space station doesn't take a lot of in-game time. I like the idea of that. Yeah. Accept the contract for Minmus, but we're gonna make a space station with that new guy as well. We're even allowed to use him for achievements because that was in the rules. Alright, so next episode we either go to Minmus or we rescue him with the space station or something. Science. Science, science, science. We have about 500 points, just under. Bigger tanks, don't need those. Struts, really nice. Let's get them, and then we get to choose between wing stuff, no. More science parts, yeah, kinda. Reflectron. Batteries and lights. Wings, no. Planes, no. Bigger stuff, maybes. Thrust plate adapter. And space bars. I don't get this. This we definitely want. Fuel lines are vital. Bigger rockets. The mainsail. Then what the hell does this do? And these external. Do we need these massive boosters yet? I mean, it wouldn't hurt. Specialized construction, docking ports and the like are nice for a space station, of course. We have 350 signs. That's actually a fair amount. So let's get this thermometer, some more science. Although we're not going to land on a place with an atmosphere anytime soon. And it's a thermometer, so it should work anyway. It doesn't grant a lot of science though, and it is expensive. It does give us the lab, which at least resembles a space station. But for a lab we need the larger engines. So let's get those. Mainsails, why the hell not? Consider them got. And this is the truly large stuff. 550 points. We don't need that yet. Nuclear is nice, because that will take us to Mars. Duna, I mean. And this is docking stuff. And we also need, like this, the adapters from large to small. But maybe not immediately. So now we have a humongous engine. And a big booster at any rate. Let's get these adapters anyway, otherwise it's going to be difficult to make a nice functioning rocket. Boom. And then what's this? Oh, the crabbing unit! Of course, we don't need that. 100 points remaining. Let's get these antennae? Yeah. Because of course we're going to need to be able to transmit stuff. So yeah, let's get the antennae. Also because I don't know what they are. Boom, lots of new stuff. Exciting, isn't it? We skipped this for some reason. Oh well. I think this episode has run on quite long enough. So I'm going to depart and refer you to the next one, which should be along, well, in a few days probably, where we will either build a space station to rescue a Kerbal. Oh wait, is the rescuing actually contingent on bringing him to Earth? Yeah, he needs to go home to Kerbin. So it doesn't really work out to save him with the space station. Oh well. Maybe we'll launch a space station with an escape pod that will then get used. Oh well, I'll think about it, and one of these things is gonna happen. Right, so this was Lorenzo with the EllBristow HardKore challenge. So far it's going well. We got 2 flags down and 3 to go. So, see you next time.